The monster manual suggests that the only ones that aren't monsters are the player characters and the gods. It says that monsters are anything that could hurt or kill you, the hero, from frogs to coatls to titans. And NPCs. That elf baker you got roleplay bread from, #ILikeBread, is a monster. The princess masquerading as a guildmaster is a monster. The town mayor is well, that one makes sense. And naturally, the heroes can't be the monsters because they're the antagonists of the story. They bankrupt the baker, they accidentally kill the princess, they further the secret plans of the mayor. They aren't the monsters, definitely not, nope. But the more monstery types of monsters that we could associate with the monster manual, look at me, the YouTuber with the incredible wordsmith abilities, those monsters have an advantage over humanoids in that they have innate spellcasting. Spellcasting that is innate. See, humanoids for the most part don't have the ability to cast spells just because they're born, say, a dwarf. But many types of demons, as an example, can cast spells and cantrip at will, regardless of their mental aptitudes. They don't need training to use them. They automatically understand their capabilities and limitations. Some humanoids such as drow and tieflings get this also, and of course the dragonborn can breathe elemental energy that are absolutely grounded in magic. But we have an advantage that we can learn magic, and also vary our knowledge of skills. Whereas every Balgura innately knows Phantasmal Force, but none of them knows Fireball. The Monster Manual states that these innate spells can never be changed. But why not? Why can't a creature change innate spells? And how do they get innate spells? To help explain that, we first need to explain something about demons and devils, and other monsters. Demons are constructs, not in the Monster Manual class sense, but more in the sense that the Abyss itself is a living conscious plane of existence and tears off tiny pieces of its own substrate to turn into a copy based on a template of demonic destruction in order to destroy reality. For the most part, the individual demons of a particular strain will be virtually identical, literally a copy-paste of the original demonic template. Each Balgura has the same strength score, the same general shape, pigmentation, constitution score, and movement speed. They are so uniform that a cleric can succeed on a religion check and accurately describe the full characteristics and abilities of the particular demon, just based on what they look like. And these are avatars of a chaotic destructive force. Devils, on the other hand, aren't creations of their home plane. They might be eternal in 5th edition, but they're still organisms. Their forms are as static as demons, however, limited to set shapes and categories, bound to a hierarchical structure, which is enforced by Asmodeus, the king of all devils. Promotions and demotions exist within the set devil types, but again, all imps turn invisible, have a poison stinger, and can turn into certain creatures as though with the polymorph spell. And they all look the same in their base form. An imp takes your purse and then you have to pick out the correct one from a police lineup, chances are you're going to end up accusing the wrong one. In older editions, the devils had an additional organ over other organisms known as the omnissium. This flesh sac was filled with essentially milky pokeballs, each housing a different tiny model of the full spectrum of devils. When a devil was promoted or demoted, the omnissium activated the correct miniature creature and caused it to grow. The personality of the devil would transfer into the new shape, and the newly formed devil would claw its way out of the body of the old form. The next body would also have an omnissium filled with the other forms, and the process could begin again. The only devils and demons that have a difference of shape are the Archdukes of Hell, the Demon Lords, and Asmodeus. Each of these individuals was originally a lesser demon who was elevated either through slaughter or deed or a cosmic event. The important takeaway for us, though, is that their innate spellcasting changes dramatically. Each individual of the ruling elite will generally have the same level of power within the hierarchies, except for Asmodeus, but look completely different to each other and have totally different spells. And it is that difference which leads me to the point of this video. Form informs function. This, I should point out, is total conjecture. It's based on the anecdotal information we have from the monster manuals, and the fact that while every demon looks the same, every human can look totally different. Identical twins still have differences in temperament and will. They can be a cleric and a wizard duo. They don't have innate spellcasting. Different tieflings all get hellish rebuke though. So let's look back and look at spellcasting again. Spellcasting is taking the energy of base form magic, which I call a caster because that was the original definitional term for it back when magic itself didn't have lore attached to it. So taking the Akasa and using mental aptitude to shape it into specific patterns, giving it a vibrational energy and then releasing it. We've been through this before, but it bears repeating. The magical energy's pattern and vibrational energy then manifests in the material plane as a spell effect. The general idea is that there's been a huge number of undiscovered patterns that could be drawn on to create magical effects, but they have to be done in the exact way to correctly manifest. Otherwise nothing happens. It's also implied that the spell list of 5th edition, and really every edition before that, is due to the experimentation of mages. Essentially spending their whole day either mathematically working out exactly what motions and angles are needed for a particular effect, or else spending the whole day just waving their hands around the place, trying to see if any of them will create the fabled Create Espresso spell that experience teaches us must surely exist. But personally, I think there's a simpler way to discover the spells, one that mages must surely have done, one that takes into account the spellcast requires form, that all imps look the same, and that mortals came late to the creation party. What if all imps look the same and can all cast the same spell because there's something about the physical makeup of an imp that basically precasts a spell? Like something about the extremities, the perfect placement of horns, claws, wings and tails, all with their personal magic running between these points, creating a constant web of almost cast magic. Or perhaps, as magic is often described as in the blood, the movement of lifeblood throughout the body of each Balgura creates a magical effect that can be tapped into once a day before it's depleted. Even high magic somewhat works on this idea, shaping the magic into set patterns, not casting it, but turning raw magic into a constantly moving river that creates a powerful effect. Blood, or ichor, or ichor, or whatever, flows through the demon's veins, and that latent power can be activated once or twice a day. So Balguras have a physical pattern or blood vessel network that creates a magical effect that we now know as Entangle, Phantasmal Force, Disguise Self, and Invisibility. One day, a Balguria terrorizes a town of mortals way back in prehistory. Over time, the inhabitants of this town know that this monstrosity can summon weeds to bind people, make itself look superficially like a mortal, vanish from sight, and trick people into believing that they're being bitten by leeches if they move from their current spot. And eventually the inhabitants themselves kill or hire mercenaries to kill the Balgura. As the corpse is brought back to the town for the reward, the local arcane spellcaster looks at the body and goes, this thing made people believe in a hazard so much that they hurt themselves in their confusion. We have an orc raider that this would work great on. How did the Balgura do it? And then that mage goes back to the tower with the body and dissects it, flays it, vivisects it, probably not in that order, and determines the physicality of the creature before it's able to turn back into ichor, or ichor. In their research, they notice a certain pattern of magic that seems to create an effect in the physical world, one that seems to be able to be recreated by taking the basic procedure for casting spells. And when it's cast, the mage decides to call it Phantasmal Force. Demons and devils are immortal and existed long before mortals, so it stands to reason that the innate abilities of spells we know today existed long before the mortal spells did. We occasionally hear the complaints from players asking why monsters only have the copies of spells in their repertoire and don't have anything unique, but you really need to strike that and reverse it. My theory is instead that most every spell has been discovered by killing a monster sometime in the past, dissecting the body, and translating the physiological spell-like ability into a mortal spellcasting formula that anyone can then learn. If a monster had a unique innate spell and there was more than one, it wouldn't be unique because a mortal would have killed it by now and translated its secrets, then given up for dissemination of their civilization. What does this mean for DMs? It means that if you want to give a certain Balgura a unique and specific spell, it's no longer a normal Balgura. A change in innate spellcasting will also have a change in physiology. Perhaps the coat is purple instead of orangey red, and the protruding canines are missing, and the tongue is forked. And therefore maybe it can't cast Phantasmal Force, but it can cast Scorching Ray. And then in the future, if other Balgura attack with the same physiological markers, the PCs will know to expect Scorching Ray from them. Just remember that the base form always has the same spells, so it needs to be something obvious and big, not just a different eye colour. It also provides opportunities for further origin role-playing with Tiefling and Drow. Oh, and Furbolg too. I forgot about that one, and there's likely others that I'm missing. Although they have the gift of individuality, they also have innate spellcasting, which means that something about their bodies remains the same regardless of who they are. It could just be base form, or perhaps it's in the racial ability modifiers. Whatever the reason, just bear in mind, DM, that these races are something that makes them a little bit closer in common with traditional monsters. And because under this interpretation mages have been tearing into monsters for years to discover any secret that will let them put this name on a spell faster than you can say Widogast transformation, arcane spellcasters at the very least might consider these humanoids to be something less or greater than the rest of the teeming sentient masses. Heck, every drow in existence may learn at a very young age that the only reason the surface dwellers know how to cast darkness at all is because of the many dissected drow that pave the road to progress. If you've enjoyed this video, please consider leaving a like and definitely also subscribe. It helps me a lot because it gets the word out there to new viewers, and my ultimate goal is of course to be able to tell my parents that I'm a professional YouTuber, and the 4 years it took to get my social work degree was time well spent. I hope you all have a great day, wherever you are. Remember, in a couple of days, we will all be reading with great excitement the Exandrian book. Can't wait to talk about that with you. And until then, to be continued.